Welcome back. On this episode, we've been talking about the power and pitfalls of social media, particularly for young people. In a recent first-of-its-kind study at UCLA's Amundsen Lovelace Brain Mapping Center, it was found that the same brain circuits that are activated by eating chocolate and winning money are activated when teenagers see large numbers of likes on their own photos or the photos of peers in a social network. Well, to discuss the implications of this and much more is psychologist and author of the book Screen Time in the Meantime, Dr. Tracy Bennett. Dr. Bennett, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So before we go any further, the title, Screen Time in the Meantime, has got a great ring, but meantime, it's loaded. Mean is an adjective in this, right?
That's right. I mean, it means that, you know, we do use screens to keep kids busy. And when kids are on screens, they're exposed to a lot of meanness, and sometimes they're mean because empathy is down and they can't always see what they say or do hit their audience.
Yeah, and we were just talking about the sort of neurological and brain chemistry aspects of what happens here. What's the correlation between social media and depression?
You know, we don't know exactly which piece of depression screen time contributes to, but we do know that mood disorders and anxiety disorders are up. And I'm not only, I teach addiction studies at Cal State Channel Islands, but I'm also a clinician. I've been in private practice for over 25 years. And for the first time in my practice, I'm seeing little kids, 7 years old, having panic symptoms.
Oh, no.
And I believe that it's the autonomic overarousal from being on their screens and playing games, and the excitement of it puts them in kind of a mental brownout state where they don't have a lot of coping resources left over.
Well, as you say, you work with addiction, and I have felt myself this sort of reflexive reaching for a phone when I have a brief break. It's like I want to see what's happening next in social media. Social media and addiction is a real thing, right?
It's a real thing. You know, in Asia, they have inpatient facilities. They're called boot camps to get teenagers and adults off their screens. And now we're seeing inpatient facilities popping up all over the United States, and we're going to see more of it.
Wow.
They've always been ahead of us with mobile technology, and you are seeing it anytime you go to a restaurant, right? It distracts us from our real life relationships. It distracts us from healthy activities, and it can lead us to what we call digital injury, and there's a lot of digital injuries I could list that are pretty scary.
Name a couple. I mean, what does digital injury mean?
Well, we have repetitive use injuries. So I'm seeing kids with spinal deformities that we used to only see with 60-year-old welders and dentists.
Oh, wow.
We see exploitation from sexual predators, from marketers. You know, I founded Get Kids Internet Safe partly to educate parents about the digital injury risk, but also to teach them how to build pro-social behaviors and resilience with their kids. I'm not a screen-free parent myself, and I think that ship has sailed. I'm an educator. I believe screens really provide us amazing discovery and learning opportunity, but there are so many things that we really need to do as parents to keep our kids safe, because they're persuasively designed, like you said, to release dopamine in the pleasure center of our brain, just like drugs of addiction do. Yeah. And we're seeing that impacting kids more and more.
Well, just today, the World Health Organization offered some guidelines around this, right? Why don't you take us into that a little bit?
That's right, yeah, so I'm really happy to hear that. You know, the World Health Organization only last year decided that gaming is an addictive behavior, and now they're setting guidelines: no screen exposure before 1 year old, and until 5, no more than an hour a day. And the truth is, you know, most of us experts, we do have screen time guidelines. That's why I put it in my book and on my website. But really, content is even more important than screen time, because little tiny kids, if they're exposed to frenetic activity that keeps them super hyper and busy, that can actually burn them out and cause anxiety. And they don't yet have the self-regulation to turn away and rejuvenate.
Right.
So pro-social, you know, socio-emotional education programming for 3 and up has its benefits, certainly. But you don't want to have a lot of frenetic, entertaining content in front of the kid all the time, especially, you know, like aggressive video gaming or first-person shooter games.
Right, and to bring this back into the context of social media a little bit, I mean, in full disclosure, my child has a social media account. She's only one, she's not maintaining it, and it's private.
Right.
But how early is too early for kids to be maintaining their own accounts and to be posting and to sort of be interacting with social media on that level?
You know what's interesting? The regulation that's out there says 13 years old, but that's based on child privacy laws, not really on child psychology health.
This is legal and not...
Right, that's what's legal. It's not psychologically healthy.
Right.
You know, we just need to keep in mind that kids aren't really, they don't have the brain development that allows them to anticipate the future and anticipate consequence. So they're impulsive, they do what they see, and they make huge mistakes. If it's done in front of trusted friends and family, we can guide them and help them, and it's a great learning opportunity. Failure is part of learning. Right. But if they're online too young, they're making those mistakes in front of thousands of people. And we heard the social media influencers say that even among their super fans, they can be really hurtfully criticized.
Right.
And if you're a little kid, you don't know how to handle that. So I really believe it's the parents' obligation to keep their kids off of social media. Into middle school is my recommendation.
Wow, yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier, Get Kids Internet Safe, GKIS. Walk us a little bit more into your work around that.
Yeah, so I've been I'm a mother of 3.
Right.
My youngest is 15, my oldest is 25.
Oh, wow.
And the difference between raising the 25-year-old and the 15-year-old was very different because mobile technology really came in when he was tiny. So I was dragging them around with their little, Game Boys. And so I noticed in my home and in my clinical practice that digital injury was happening more and more, and I was getting pretty spooked about it because the people I was seeing were families just like yours and mine with really good parents and healthy kids. And so I started looking into the research about what kind of parenting strategies were out there, and there weren't any. Dr. Phil was saying, be there with your kid anytime they're on screen, and we all know that's not gonna happen. So I did a deep dive in the research. I wrote my Screen Time in the Meantime book, and then I started producing weekly articles for parents, so they had good content that was accurate, developed in the research, where they could teach their kids important topics during a screen-free dinner. Because really, GKIS is mostly about connecting as a family, first and foremost, and then secondly, staying screen safe.
There's some nice values behind your work.
There is.
You've been writing articles. We have this book, which is being reissued, right?
Yeah, I just reissued it this year.
Yeah. So we just have a brief moment left, but aside from your great work, what would be a great resource for people when they're just trying to figure out what are the right answers around this stuff?
When I was in the green room listening to you guys, I was thinking, what would be wonderful if these social media influencers started advocating more for mental health. You had that piece where the boy was really troubled by his followers telling him how upset they are. If there's a way that those influencers could turn them to resources that could really benefit them, because we have solutions. We have ways of making people better, and it's a lot more than just listening to them talk about feelings. There are really good strategies out there, and that's what I wanted to share.
It's a great suggestion. Maybe we'll put that out on our social media.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'd love it.
Thank you so much for being here,
Thanks
Dr.
for
Bennett.
having me.
Appreciate you. Well, don't go away. We've got one more social media star right after this brief break.